From Corporal to Chaos: The Effects of Constructive and Consistent Behavior Management Programs in Thailand. Framingham State University, EDUC 999. Research and Evaluation, Dr. Ronald Ron Ver. This research proposal presentation is being brought to you by Ryan Roth Emry. Before we delve into the proposed research study, let's begin by taking a closer look at the educational landscape in Thailand. The educational system in Thailand is mainly comprised of three types of schools: public government schools, private schools, and international schools. As you can see, the vast majority of Thai students receive their education from the government-funded institutions. Here we have a rough breakdown by the National Statistic Office of Thailand of the number of students enrolled in public and private educational institutions. It is to be noted that private includes both private schools and international schools, and this chart does not include any undergraduate, postgraduate, or doctoral studies. Now that we have a general idea of the academic layout for students in Thailand, let's examine closer the behavior management practices being used by these schools. Survey research conducted by UNICEF in 2016 found that on average, of the school-aged Thai children that were surveyed, that 75% reported to have experienced some form of violent discipline in the home and/or school in a time period ranging back from 1 month prior to leading up to the survey date. 62% of that was reported as psychological aggression, 56% as physical punishment, 4% of which was severe physical punishment, and on average that only 21% of children most commonly experienced only non-violent forms of discipline. Here is a further visual breakdown of the previous slide statistics on disciplinary methods used in Thailand. It is to be noted that of the non-violent discipline types, girls were slightly more likely to receive only non-violent discipline than boys. In a survey article run by the ASEAN Post in 2019, we can get a fair picture of the cultural implications on perspectives towards corporal punishment in Thailand, as we see that only 41% of those parents who were surveyed agreed with the criminalization of corporal punishment. Included in the survey by the ASEAN Post was a section on preferred methods of which corporal punishment was administered. As you can see here, the numbers speak for themselves. From the vast amount of research on the effects of corporal punishment, here are but some of the main variables in which corporal punishment has an inverse or negative correlation to, as in the greater amount of corporal punishment existent in a school's environment, the lower the measurements of these variables occur. Longitudinal studies reported in the Journal of Aggression, Maltreatment and Trauma show significant impairment in cognitive development in groups of children that received spanking on a regular basis as a form of discipline, punishment, or behavior management. On the other hand, here is a list of variables that have been measured to have a positive correlation with corporal punishment. One look at this list will help to lead us closer to understanding why this form of behavior management practice is becoming obsolete and, in most cases, illegal. Again, from the longitudinal study report by the Journal of Aggression, spanking, or physical punishment, is shown here to have a significant increase in the likelihood of antisocial behaviors that were exhibited by the participants in the study. And last but not least, here are what the numbers show in regards to corporal punishment and its relationship to documented criminal behavior in adulthood. With such condemning evidence against corporal punishment, it is of little to no surprise that Thai law states that any form of corporal punishment is not to be allowed in schools. What does come as a startling surprise, however, is the rates at which corporal punishment is still measured and reported by children in the Thai educational system today. This reveals a deep and wide chasm in between the stated laws and the monitoring and enforcement of such laws. It is by these cultural traditions and current circumstances, in combination with the simplicity and interpretable nature of the law, that has left behavior management practices in the Thai educational system in a state that could be only appropriately described as the behavior management dark ages. If we take a look at a general spectrum of possible behavior management practices, we can clearly see the direction in which the majority of schools in Thailand are leaning towards. However, what is more intriguing is that at the other end of the spectrum are laissez-faire practices, which can also be commonly found and at times running rampant in schools in Thailand. While no research currently gives us evidence and a statistical validation to such claims, it is of the personal experiences of the research team and expressed viewpoints by an ever-growing community of teachers who have taught in Thailand who have experienced this to be true. Such an environment in which laissez-faire practices are evident and observable are in private schools with multilingual programs. In private schools in Thailand, it is not uncommon to find laissez-faire behavior management practices, nor corporal punishment, and in turn, everything else in between. Here are some of the facets of such an environment that might have effect on the existence of such a wide array of behavior management practices, all existing in one setting. For a student at such a school, a typical academic day might resemble something like the schedule given here, with each subject and class being taught by a totally different teacher, and no school-wide behavior management policies in place. It is of no surprise to expect such a dramatic difference from one class to the next. In order to construct an effective behavior management policy, let's start by taking a look once again at the impact that behavior management has on academic gains. Classic educational research conducted by Hattie, Marzano, and the likes has shown us just how significant the effect of behavior management can be on academic gains. As we can see from Hattie's work, at the pinnacle of effective behavior management practices are positive teacher-student relationships, which have a 0.72 positive effect on student academic gains. Not only measured is the quality of the relationship between teacher and student, but the quality of relationships between students in which the teacher helps to foster. According to Hattie's work, well-managed classrooms have a 0.52 positive effect on academic gains. In addition to this, they also have a 0.62 positive effect on heightened student engagement. The attributes of teachers that had the greatest influence on ensuring well-managed classrooms and reducing disruptions were the ability to identify and quickly act on potential behavioral problems, remaining emotionally objective, situational awareness or mindfulness, disciplinary interventions, group contingency strategies, providing tangible recognition, some symbol or token awarded for appropriate behaviors, and interventions that involved a direct and concrete consequence for misbehavior. Effective behavior management practices can help lead to positive classroom behaviors, which can be described as behaviors that support the capacity of students to learn the tasks and skills required to achieve educationally. The major component of a positive classroom climate is a classroom cohesion, the sense that all teachers and students are working towards positive learning gains, which has a 0.53 effect on academic gains. Classroom climate has common attributes that can optimize student learning, some of which are goal-directedness, positive interpersonal relationships, and social support. A cohesive and positive classroom climate can inspire a continual synergy of positively expressed and reinforced behaviors amongst students. This increases the likelihood of peer influence to have a positive effect on each individual student's behavior, which, when it does, can have a 0.53 positive effect on academic gains. While decreasing disruptive behavior appears to be less impactful on academic gains, Hattie exclaims that the presence of disruptive students can have negative effects on their own and all other students' achievement outcomes. Thus, reducing disruptive behaviors needs to be a core competency of any successful teacher. The argument here is not that these students should be removed, as often the same students in a different class are less disruptive. Rather, it is the teacher's need for skills to ensure that no student unnecessarily disrupts their own or the learning of any other students in the class. Here again are the list of effects laid out in table form. As we can now see the imperative for effective behavior management practices to exist within a school's environment, only when adopted consistently and on a school-wide scale can the academic gains by such a positive behavior management program be maximized. Research might draw upon existing practices already in place today for increased effectiveness, such as the one displayed here in the school-wide positive behavioral support model. Some of the key attributes found in schools that have implemented school-wide positive behavior support programs can be seen here. In contrast, research has also shown how inconsistent behavioral management practices and programs can impact a school environment, the staff, and the students within it. In addition to consistency, behavior management programs must also be constructive. As seen in programs like the Positive Behavior Intervention and Support, the impact that constructive behavioral management programs can have on the components of a school environment are widespread. In conclusion, it is of the proposal of this research to draw upon existing practices in the implementation of a consistent and constructive behavior management program, and in turn measure the effects on the academic and behavioral gains of grade 4 TIE students in a multilingual private school setting.